We do business together, we make money, we growing this. But if you continue to keep me in the dark, our business ain't gonna last.
Is that a threat?
I'm spitting facts. No more lies, no more hiding from me, or I walk.
Now, is Season 3 gearing up for Tommy vs Diamond? That's the question I'm going to be asking in this breakdown, and that's what we're going to be dissecting after Episode 1. Because the clues were there from 301, Season 2, but also going all the way back to Season 1. Janard making moves behind Tommy and Diamond's back, and also how he was feeding things to Diamond, just like we saw him do in the first episode of Season 3. The added element that makes things even more complex from Season 2 is also Shanti's showstopper page. After Episode 1, we also saw the argument between Tommy and Diamond, and we also heard Diamond give the go-ahead to go and get rid of D-Mac. Now that is going to be a huge problem. Even though I don't think anything will happen to D-Mac in the short term, it is still a huge problem. It tells us that Diamond isn't afraid to make these decisions behind Tommy's back, and if he isn't afraid to make a call to go and get rid of D-Mac, he's probably not afraid to make other calls and decisions either. Gary Lennon also had this to say on their relationship in an interview with a TV Insider. The third season is built around a lot of triangles, including Tommy, Janard, and Diamond. How much allegiance truly lies in Diamond's DNA with his brother? In a triangle, there's always one person who loses out. I think we really play a great game of chess with these triangles this season, because one person certainly misses out in each triangle, but I think our audience will be surprised on who that person is. There are also a few more quotes pre-season 3 which is relevant to this topic, and I will be bringing them in a bit later on. But that's the topic of this particular breakdown, this triangle between Tommy, Diamond, and Janard, how Shanti's mixed in between, how D-Mac is mixed in between, and also King Kilo. But are they gearing up for Tommy vs Diamond? And also who misses out in this particular triangle, come the end of Power Book 4 Force, Season 3. Now we know how Tommy and Diamond struck up that partnership back in Season 1. Both are OGs in the game, they both started off selling weed, they had a lot of things in common. We then saw them build a bond because Diamond liked the vision from Tommy, even though he was an outsider doing things his way. The thing is, his way worked. The problem between the two, which they did lay the foundation for very early on, was Janard. That's number one. There's no explanation needed when it comes to Janard and the moves that he's made behind their back, the seeds that he planted and also continues to plant. Number 2, Tommy did tend to make a lot of calls without Diamond. Take the hit to Chewie in 201 as an example. He went behind Diamond's back and killed Chewie after he flipped to treason, and that caused a big problem and laid the foundation for unrest in the streets. It led to retaliation, the death of a kid, community unrest, law enforcement setting up this task force, and a lot more issues. There were also a few trust issues. For example, Diamond wasn't exactly honest at first when he was dealing with the cop Seamus. They were business partners and they did work pretty well together, and I don't think they would have got CBI to where they are without each other. Tommy was a lot of the brains in Season 2. He had the vision, the plans, the strategy, but he lacked the soldiers and the crew to carry out what he wanted to achieve. To take all this territory in Chicago and become number 1, he had to have numbers, and that's where Diamond and the CBI came in. Vic Flynn was also another problem later on. They both disagreed on what to do with Vic after they found out he was a snitch, and that's when Diamond started to really question Tommy again, right towards the end of Season 2, about him making decisions without consulting his partner. That's where the issue stemmed from. They may have agreed later on with how to use Vic and play law enforcement, but it was the constant moves that were being made behind each other's backs. It goes both ways, not just one, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But if we were to be honest, even though I'm sure we would all back Tommy, he has actually been the one who's been keeping things from Diamond, and making a lot of calls on his own. At the beginning of Season 2, Diamond warned him to stay away from Maria, rightfully so because of who they were in business with. But in 301, Janard fed it to Diamond that Tommy was seeing Maria behind his back, and that caused a lot of tension between them pretty much straight away in Episode 1. Diamond wasn't mad that he was seeing Maria, it was the fact that he didn't tell Diamond he was sleeping with someone's sister who they were in business with at the time, and also someone he shook hands with after they made the deal with Shay. I mean, let's take a look at this from Diamond's point of view. He warned Tommy to stay away from Maria because they were in business with Miguel. Tommy kept this relationship from Diamond, and if you look at it from a business point of view, it's hard not to think that it wouldn't affect their street business. You're sleeping with a guy's sister who you're trying to dethrone. All of a sudden, Diamond was questioning whether Tommy really wanted to make a deal with the Albanians, or was it because he was seeing Maria? That's why he didn't press them. Once the secret was revealed, it does start to kind of raise and cast doubts from Diamond's point of view about every single one of Tommy's moves. And that also made Diamond make the threat of him being down a business partner if that sort of stuff continues. Added to Tommy giving Diamond orders at the beginning of Episode 1, him moving weird without telling Diamond what was really happening and why he had to leave, it does cause trust issues. So, the ice is becoming very thin when it comes to their partnership. If there are any more lies, if they are hiding things from each other, If there isn't any trust, there just simply can't be a partnership. Everything in this game and everything in real life when it comes to friendships and relationships, everything is built on trust. But if there's 1, 2, 3 or 4 lies and things that are constantly being done behind your back, there's going to be trust issues and the relationships will start to show cracks. So they are already telling us that Diamond isn't afraid to make this call to cut ties with Tommy if he does continue to make moves behind his back. Diamond did say he was ready to walk. Now Tommy did actually admit that he was wrong. He did mention to Diamond nothing's changed in terms of their end goal in taking Miguel Garcia's position and also becoming the #1 connect in Chicago. But again, I did mention it does go both ways. So let's not forget when Diamond kept the information around Jannard being a drug addict from Tommy, when he specifically asked him is there anything else he needs to know about Jannard. At the back end of season 2 episode 10, Diamond also wasn't really against the idea of giving D-Mac up to King Kilo. And I did wonder before season 3 whether it was something they were going to come back around to. There were question marks around Glenn Davis being able to film season 3, but thankfully that wasn't a problem. If they had to recast King Kilo, then you end up in a situation like Power Book 2 Ghosts when they had to recast Theo Rollins, which didn't really kind of work well. But Jannard went to go see King Kilo, and he said he couldn't sleep knowing that D-Mac was still breathing. He then gave Jannard a week to take D-Mac off the map, and when he told Diamond, he made the decision and the call to get rid of D-Mac, but to make sure the hit doesn't come back on them. They couldn't have Tommy thinking they were the ones behind D-Mac's death. Now we know nothing is going to happen to D-Mac. In fact, they've already released an exclusive for episode 2 and it is a scene between Tommy and D-Mac. So we know Jannard will probably let him go because of Shanti's plan, and that's another issue entirely. They've also teased in episode 3's description, which is titled "There's Always a Price to Pay," that Diamond and Jannard will be making a new plan to deal with D-Mac. But the fact that Diamond made this call to get rid of D-Mac, who he knows is Tommy's nephew, I mean that really is a very big call to make. That's a big secret to hide if they were the ones to be behind D-Mac's death, because they know Tommy would absolutely lose his shit. The problem they actually find themselves in is if they don't get rid of D-Mac, then the coalition with King Kilo and the RDs, that all falls apart, and then they have a target on their backs from King Kilo and the RDs. So weighing up the option, Diamond made the call to get rid of D-Mac. Now it doesn't matter if Jannard is going with Shanti's plan and keeping D-Mac alive for an extra 2 or 3 weeks, the fact that Diamond made this call behind Tommy's back, it just shows you there's no trust or communication between Tommy and Diamond at this moment in time. It goes back to the point around trust. It seems to me Diamond is just sick and tired of Tommy hiding things from him, making these calls, having all these opportunities to sort this mess out. He's just sick and tired of it, because it doesn't seem like it's a partnership, but more Tommy making the calls. So he made the call to get rid of D-Mac. And if it is like this now, it's only just gonna get worse. You've got Jannard constantly being in Diamond's ear, planting the seeds, planting seed of doubts and telling him Tommy's this, Tommy's doing that behind your back, although that is something Tommy is aware of. Joseph Sikora did do an interview where he said the following: Tommy's got a lot of love for Diamond and a lot of animosity for Jannard, but at the same time, he is wise enough to respect the threat that is Jannard and sees that Diamond's loyalties may not strictly lie with Tommy. He's at odds with not only the remaining Flynns, but obviously at least one half of the CBI. Does he really trust Diamond? He knows the bond between the brothers is strong, just like him and Ghost. I think he sees a lot of him and Ghost in that relationship between Diamond and Jannard, so he is on guard. So Tommy knows the brotherhood between Jannard and Diamond may have been rocky in season 1, but so was his and Ghost. It doesn't change the fact that they're brothers and blood is thicker than water. I don't think Jannard is even fully on board with Shanti's plan in terms of getting rid of Diamond. That's another little added complication in season 3 as well. There are a lot of moving chess pieces. But Tommy knows that if push comes to shove, Diamond will probably pick Jannard. I mean, he's already made the call to get rid of D-Mac, so picking Jannard over Tommy is probably nothing to Diamond. Let's also add Shanti into the mix.
These are streets, our blocks.
These brothers, they looking out for themselves.
We have no idea who could be having this back right now.
At some point soon, Shanti is going to be warning Tommy he does need to watch his back when it comes to the brothers. They're going to be looking out for themselves, and we have seen various teasers and trailers where Tommy does have his head on a constant swivel when it comes to Diamond. He's definitely watching him. Whether Shanti is playing a bigger game, I think we all know she is. That's something Gary Lennon has teased, and I'm hoping Tommy isn't blindsided with all the other issues he's dealing with, where he then neglects the issue of Shanti. Who knows? I mean, I do think that is possible. It's also possible that Shanti is there also to just chip away at Tommy, just like Jannard is chipping away at Diamond. You've got both of them working on each of the partners and playing them against each other. Their best plan at this moment in time is probably playing on the trust issues between them, on top of their plan with King Kilo. It's very similar to what Kanan used to do with Tommy and Ghost. There's already trust issues between Tommy and Diamond, so why don't you go and feed this into Diamond's ear while I go and feed this into Tommy's ear? just like Kanan used to kind of just chop away at Tommy when Ghost wasn't around. It's definitely possible because we know how crafty Shanti is. But is it all leading up to Diamond versus Tommy, or at least as a bare minimum, Tommy being forced out of the CBI? Because we do know he is going to become a lone wolf later on in season 3. So running it back to the question from Gary Lennon at the beginning where he mentioned the triangle between Tommy, Jannard and Diamond, who loses out? I do think it is going to be Tommy in the short to mid-term, with him being forced out of the CBI. And if he is forced out of the CBI, if there is a split between the two, does that mean a potential war? We know Tommy wants the entire map of Chicago, and if Diamond and the CBI are standing in his way, then he does know what needs to be done. Let's also take another look at that episode 3 title and description. There's always a price to pay. Diamond and Jannard devise a plan to deal with DMAC. Now with the title of the episode, there's always a price to pay. I mean, that's just self-explanatory. There has to be consequences to DMAC's actions. There is no way blood isn't going to be shed, and I just wonder if the price is actually JP. Will JP suffer the consequences of DMAC's actions? Will he be caught in the crossfire, and is that a call that Diamond could make? I mean, maybe. I'm not putting it past him, because if he was happy to make the call on the hit on DMAC, if it means keeping the peace with King Kilo and the RDs, if he is going to force Tommy out the CBI and pick Jannard over Tommy, just like Gary Lennon and Joseph Sikora have teased how their brotherhood is going to be very strong this season, then I can actually see Diamond making that call. Either way, even if he does or he doesn't, in the short term, I do see Tommy losing out in this triangle. In the long term, I see a potential war brewing between Tommy and Diamond, and it all depends on what happens in between. What happens with DMAC? What happens with Jannard, Shanti, King Kilo? Who's actually going to be the one behind JP's death, if this is JP's funeral? So Gary Lennon wasn't joking when he said this is a very big chess game. Just have a look at how many different dimensions from Tommy, Diamond, DMAC, King Kilo, Shanti, Jannard. Just have a look at all the angles involved in this particular triangle. This little scenario really is a huge chess game, one that can take so many different directions, and one which I'm sure we probably won't be able to predict, but that's the fun thing about power. We don't want to be predicting everything. So that's where I'm going to leave the floor open for you guys in the comment section. Definitely drop me your comments and thoughts and predictions on all things Tommy versus Diamond and the situation with everybody else in their orbit. Drop all your thoughts and comments down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.